Good evening, everyone, and welcome. At this time, I call to order the Monday, March 11th, 2024 regular scheduled City of Clemson Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the City of Clemson's YouTube channel. The Planning Commission is a volunteer committee appointed by City Council and serves in its advisory role in the planning and development of our city. We are not employees of the City of Clemson. At this time, I'm going to introduce our commissioners. We have Commissioner Burton, Commissioner Crowley, Commissioner Thaxton, and welcome, Commissioner Hyatt, Commissioner Carranzas, and my name's Greg Rice. I'm serving as the Vice Chair this evening. Thank you all, and we have a quorum. I also want to mention that we have Herb Tyler on remotely, so I believe he can hear us, and if he needs to pipe in, we'll be able to allow him to do so. I also want to introduce our administrative staff from the Planning Department. We got Nathan Woods, Art Holbrooks, Stephen Price is our IT, and Kelly Roach, who's our recording secretary. At this time, we're going to follow our agenda this evening. I'm going to open it up for our public session. As a reminder, according to City of Clemson Planning Commission rules of procedure, members of the public may address the commission regarding matters within the purview of this commission and that are not on the agenda. This session shall be up to 15 minutes total, and each speaker may speak for up to 3 minutes. If any of the speakers have prepared remarks that they would like for us to attach to our minutes, you're free to do so as you come up, or you can leave it with Kelly at the conclusion of the meeting. So I'll go ahead at this time and open up the public session for anything that is not on the agenda this evening. All right. Did we have any comments or anything that were submitted online that we would need to read this evening? All right.
Okay, you're not? Okay.
All right.
There was nothing online.
Okay. I'll go ahead and close the public session. We'll move on to the adoption of minutes from our February 12th, 2024 regular meeting. Have all the commissioners had the opportunity to review the minutes, including the updated copy of the attachment that was added to the minutes? And are there any edits or omissions that were noted? All right. Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our February 12th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for our February 12th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you, Herb. We got it. All right. Well, the minutes are approved. So at this time, we're going to move on to our action items. The first action item on the agenda for tonight is PUD 00146-2023, the hub. Staff, are there any updates, updated reports or changes the commissioners should be made aware of? Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask if there was a member from the hub that would like to come. Station, I'm sorry. The station. Yes, the station. I am sorry. Yes, my apologies, the station. So I'm going to go back just to make sure. PUD-00146-2023, the station. So if you would please update that for the minutes, please. So at this time, if there's anyone, any member from the station group that would like to come forward, just a reminder, you have 10 minutes for your presentation according to our rules of procedure during our meetings.
Planning Commission, nice to be back here with you all. I know there's some new faces, so I'll reintroduce myself.
Harris Moy from Landmark Properties. We're based out of Athens, Georgia. And we'll kind of get into, in our presentation, just going through some of the changes we've made over time here. But, I think we've really tried to incorporate into this development the feedback we've received to date, tried to address the staff comments that we received while still having an economically viable project. So I think we'll kind of go into some more specifics here in a couple slides, but we've definitely tried to incorporate changes into our site plan to reflect the feedback we've gotten today. Just outlining where the site is, I think everyone's familiar where it's located on Old Greenville Highway, where the old violin used to be. Next. These are just some renderings of our project. All of the residential component will be max 3 stories, combination of townhomes, as well as garden apartment or walk-up style units. And so just kind of wanted to provide a representation of, the product that we'd be building and, how that looks like from a street aspect along the frontages. So here, we thought it'd be helpful to just lay out kind of where we started in our original plan, with where we came in Planning Commission recently, and then where we kind of are today. As you can see, we've, since our last time being in front of you all, doubled the amount of units in the affordable workforce housing. We really understand that has been highlighted from the Clemson Next plan in this area and location. Although it's only going from 4 to 8, that is a pretty material impact from our side. So even though it might from first blush seem like they only added 4 units, I mean 8 total units at that workforce level is impactful to us on our side. Other changes that we made where we've been able to increase the parking on this site dramatically, and added about 40 spaces. A lot of that recently has come from adding parallel parking along the street, as well as reconfiguring within our site plan to add additional parking as it relates to the commercial spaces, but also feel comfortable with the parking we're providing to the residents as well. Lastly, we've since doubled the square footage of the commercial space within the site plan to now 14,000 square feet. This was obviously in our mind a big change from the previous square footage. Obviously building 14,000 square feet of commercial space isn't cheap by any means, and doubling it, I think we obviously want to make something work that can be leased, but also in our mind serves the community with an adequate square footage in this location. And then lastly, we still have the pedestrian paths, but mostly we removed the vehicular gates to the site in terms of residential parking. Previously, if you'll remember, we had gated off the residential areas and just left the commercial parking area by itself. Hearing your all's comments on the connectivity, as well as the interaction there, if there was not enough parking, that kind of allowed us to work and change our site plan to where we can increase the square footage overall, the commercial space, add a substantial amount of parking that can benefit that commercial space and allow it to be where there's not only 20 parking spaces, and what if a store is really busy at one time, and then where are those people going to park? So we thought that was a great way to reflect that feedback. And then there was previous comments about the playground. I think more from some of the staff comments you received that the playground area in this location might not be feasible or functional to the most for the community around that. So we had switched it to be a dog park for the community. Obviously, I think we are open to the use of that space if there is a kind of different use that you all would rather see there. We're obviously open to it, but we felt like a community dog park in this area, could be beneficial for people around. If you kind of go to the next slide, this basically just kind of highlights some of the changes we've made since our previous previous presentation. Some of these are repetitive from what I just talked through, so I'll just hit the items not mentioned. In the top left, got the feedback from staff about it not being a safe condition backing out into Canoy Lane with having those parking spaces for the now dog park area. We've adjusted them to have a couple parallel spaces that would work well along Sumney Street to the north. That's where a lot of the additional parking has been added in terms of street parking, which we think adds to the viability of the commercial space, but also for the dog park and kind of the public at large in this immediate area. We've already touched upon about the increasing of the workforce housing units, the increased commercial space, removing the vehicular gates, and I think lastly, just we did increase the parking within the site as well to help alleviate some concerns. Next slide just kind of talks through those changes that we just ran through. And then next slide would be great. So I think, from our perspective, we hear you on the Clemson Next plan, labeling this site as both for a commercial area as well as workforce housing. I think from our perspective, we 100% use in either direction isn't going to be viable economically for us. So what we've tried to do is to date increase as many units as we can, and currently with the affordable or workforce housing, but also try to increase the square footage with the commercial while still having a project that works economically. I think from an overall commercial square footage standpoint, we feel like the 14,000 square feet that is there, will absolutely be leased. We think that's could be roughly what is there today on kind of the non-BILO portion of the commercial space. But I think from our perspective of say 50,000 square feet of commercial or retail, just hasn't proven to be viable in this location from our perspective. I think we're trying to be cognizant of the commercial space that's existing that is leased. We feel that we've done a good job trying to incorporate that space into our project as well. Furthermore on this slide, we kind of feel like in our mind this is an appropriate use for the site and adds good connectivity to the other areas of this immediate area in terms of commercial. I think residents living near the commercial that's already there, and there's definitely other parcels around the area that could be redeveloped in the future for commercial. That this would kind of be a good symbiotic relationship between the two, and I think having some residential in this area would benefit the larger commercial spaces in the close proximity. Next slide. This just touches on the dog park, which we already kind of talked about earlier. We're open to other uses here, but we felt like we just wanted to respond to the comment we had received about the playground might not be the best use in this location. Next slide, please. In terms of kind of abandoning Newton Lane and the traffic, from our perspective, we don't feel like abandoning Newton Lane will not directly impact the traffic and circulation around there based on our traffic study and counts. If you look at our site plan, there theoretically is a straight shot kind of from the back of the site to the front to where the existing road is currently. I think if we were we obviously are open to potentially keeping the road if that is, what it takes to gain support from you all. I think from our perspective, just removing that arm of the light doesn't inherently create a problem, especially coupled with the fact that we've removed the vehicular gates, so it allows access for cars still through our site. But we just kind of wanted to touch on that as it related to Newton in particular.
I'm gonna go ahead just for a moment. How many more slides?
So there's one more and then.
Okay,
that's
sure,
it.
sure, yeah, we're at the 10-minute mark, so I just want to
Okay.
make sure. I'll go ahead and extend you another 5 minutes.
No worries.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide. And then we just kind of wanted to talk about the parking here. And that just because of the ratio, it doesn't, in our mind, directly correlate with the traffic. I think for this site, given the renter base, a lot of people are going to be taking the bus system and using the CAP bus system. So in our mind, while yes, we have a ratio that parks, the 490 spaces, we don't feel like that's really a direct correlation into increased traffic and counts during the actual day. And so, while yes, it's a lot of parking spaces, kids will definitely not be wanting to drive if they don't need to, which, having the bus that runs, right down the road allows them to kind of leave their cars during the day, and we've made sure that we have an adequate number of spaces for them to do so. And, I think if we were only parking the project at, at a lower percentage, it could create some issues in terms of leasing. So, obviously kids want to bring their car to campus and to the community. But we feel like having the CAP bus system there and creating a bus stop will really help slow down the kind of day-to-day increased number in counts. So with that, I'll just kind of conclude that, throughout this process, we really try to incorporate as much feedback as we can from you all. I think we've really tried to push this thing forward, and hearing your feedback in terms of mostly, workforce housing and commercial space, but we're obviously grateful to be back here and hear your thoughts kind of on the latest revised plan, so thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, if we have any members of the public that would like to come forward and comment on this agenda item, feel free to do so. If you'd come up to the podium, state your name and address for our record keeping. And just as a reminder, each member of the public has 3 minutes to comment on the proposal, on this particular proposal. Members of the public also have the ability to cede their time to a designated spokesperson, and that person would be allowed to speak for 20 minutes. So at this time, we'll ask any members of the public if they'd like to come forward and comment on this proposal. Yes, sir. Come forward, please.
Hello, my name is Max Kinsler. I live at One Term Farm Drive in Central. I'm a proud graduate of Clemson University. I've been a resident and property owner in this city for 9 of the past 12 years. I'm Vice President of McCoy Wright Commercial Real Estate. We're headquartered in Anderson. I do a lot of brokerage work in this part of the country. And I'm in no way affiliated with this project. I don't in any way stand to gain monetarily from it. I have a very pro-growth mindset. Small towns in the southeast are either growing or they're dying. And this town does not exist without the university, and vice versa. If the university can't keep growing and has to go to a status quo, I think that's bad for the town. And the university can't keep growing without more student housing. It's a big need for them, and I think this is a project that if I was sitting in one of your seats, I would wholeheartedly support. The Bilo site has been proven to not be a viable retail site simply because it's been available for so long and no one has taken it. It's been the hottest leasing market for the past couple of years in many decades, and if there was a user for that site, it would be filled. I hate seeing vacancies in my town. it bothers me on a deep personal level because it, to me, it looks bad, and I don't like parts of Clemson that look bad. This is where my family goes to school and goes to shop, and this is where I come to town, so to speak. I don't like seeing parts of the town that are not being utilized effectively, and if I would urge the commission to approve this project, I think it'd be a huge win. Frankly, it's really flattering when somebody comes into your town and says, I want to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars to help and to solve problems that are real and that exist. These students need a place to live. It would really, I love my time at Clemson, and I can't imagine what it would feel like to be there but not have a place to go sleep at night. So I think we need it. I think it's a great idea, and that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. So, yes, ma'am.
Did you say you live in Central or you live in Clemson?
I lived in Clemson 9 of the past 12 years, but I live in Central about 10 or 12 minutes from here.
Thank you, Max, for your comments.
John Silkworth. I live at 9 Stinson in Greenville, and I own the housing development on the other side of Summit Street Varsity Club. So I've seen this come through a couple of times so far. Really, materially hasn't changed at all. I think the original comments were, it's a commercial site that's getting hijacked, turned into an RM4. You're basically taking the commercial that's there, displacing it, rebuilding it, and building what's essentially an RM4 zoning ordinance. We talked about the need in Clemson. My research shows that we're adding about 2,000 or 3,000 more houses over the next 36 months, either at the Grange or the old Shirley site on the other side of 123. We've already got a huge shortage of things to do for families, larger retail components, not your typical storefront, strip mall kind. That seems like we already have. So it's a huge site, has a ton of potential to serve the residents of Clemson for things they need. With these new houses coming online, if we don't build our infrastructure or our commercial space on that side of town, they're gonna cross 123, go to Hartwell Village, new stuff coming in Seneca, which is just gonna exacerbate our already existing traffic problem that has no end in sight. So really, I believe fails to take into account a tremendous amount of new growth on the other side of Clemson. Another PD that really doesn't take into consideration the existing families in Clemson, their needs. I'm not against 450 beds there. In fact, I would support it if it were on top of a very, very creative commercial site. So I'm not against beds, but this is truly what appears to be just a path of least resistance. How do we slam 450 beds on this site? And it's just, I hate to say this because I hate getting criticized myself, not very creative, doesn't take into account the needs of the people of Clemson. It's been through 3 times. They went through the comments. Materially, it's exactly the same. We'll give you 4 beds, we'll give you 8 beds. We'll get rid of a park, we'll make it a dog park. It's the same thing. There's not even all that much lipstick put on it. It's rearranged, reconfigured. So that's really, I'll stop there. I'm in support of a ton of beds on that site. It just has to, with a PD, it's an opportunity to make it really, really creative and not essentially rezone it to housing. Take into account the families of Clemson that need stuff. It will, I agree with the previous speaker. Something's coming. We are growing at the seams, and not exaggerating the amount of houses coming at the Grange and Old Shirley, and those people are gonna need something to do. So, yeah, almost hit it at 9 there. I appreciate your time, and frankly, I wouldn't mind seeing you take a motion tonight to deny it, because if it keeps, you have limited time, you keep coming, hey, I made it a park, it's a dog park. Hey, it's 12,000 retail, it's 10,000. If it's up to me, I'd make a motion tonight, squash it, show them you mean business, and let's get something really creative put there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, very much for your comments this evening.
There's one up. Hi, I'm Annie Caggiano, live at 411 Skyview Drive, the road that kind of dead ends into the development that we're talking about tonight. I'm here to express my support for council to deny the approval of the PUD for the station. Within their application, the station presents a density that is outside the limits of typical student housing developments, 2 of which is students per unit, 5 instead of 4. And the setbacks, these will, set precedents that will come back to haunt the Planning Commission as well as the city as a whole. There's also no mention to the TIA, which I know you mentioned in your presentation tonight, so I appreciate that one is done, but to approve a PUD without review of a TIA and the impacts of traffic it's going to have on the community would just be terrible. But I'd like to focus my comments as it relates to Clemson Next, the city's adopted strategic plan. I live in Clemson Crossing. This is the catalyst area where the station development is proposed. Clemson Next ID'd 5 catalyst areas to cultivate development and 9 strategic recommendations, all of which are incredibly important, but to the full-time residents of Clemson, investing in neighborhood and preservation and enhancement is key to us. Throughout the expansive white paper for Clemson Next, the bylaw site is mentioned several times, not once for the development of student housing. In fact, it recommends oriented entirely to non-student housing. I can't imagine that the city would utilize Next to endorse one project, the hub, and then turn around and yet completely ignore it to support another, the station. Planning works if you let it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening.
Nelson Vasquez, 104 Combahee Court, Clemson. I kind of just came to see what it was like to be in the planning committee, and because I was interested in the core project. I'm not interested in it, actually, the one on Kiwi Trail. And I found out this week that this project was going on, and I thought, wow, that's great. Take it away from downtown and put it a little bit further out of downtown Clemson at this space. One thing that I liked about it was when they put up Hartwell Village, they got rid of all those trees, the birds, the bugs, all the good stuff that's good for Clemson. So this place is already paved out. So I look at it as, why not put it there and not in downtown on Kiwi Trail? So I kind of thought it was a positive thing. I'm a therapist. I treat people with hand injuries. I'm talking to people all day that live in this area. And I just found out, last time I had the newspaper and I read that Clemson wanted to grow to 26,000. Some people told me today that Clemson wants 30,000 students. And then someone else said, no, 34,000 students is their goal. It's like, when is that gonna stop? It's like, can't you stop them? Now, those are the, if they keep on growing, we run out of space. I think we're already out of space. So it's the university that's putting so much pressure on us and the residents. And do we have any say on how big that university grows? It's a rhetorical question, really. We really don't. But they're the ones causing the problems, and we love Clemson, we love the Tigers, but there has to be kind of a stop. I disagree with the gentleman that said, if you don't grow, you die. No, I think you can stay a certain size and have a quality town. Yeah, I don't think you have to keep on growing. I left New York City, I left Miami to come to a small town, not one with a lot of traffic and growth and 7-story buildings that the Corps wants to put up. So I don't know enough about this project, but it seems like a better choice than the Corps project. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening.
I'm sure you all received a paper just a while ago.
I'm sorry, ma'am,
92
what was your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Stephanie Platt, 103 Mountain View Lane.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'm sure y'all received a paper with 92 apartment complexes here in Clemson. This is ridiculous. It really is. I mean, do we really need more apartments here in Clemson? I mean, the traffic is already awful. I had to sit through a light, four lights just to get here. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I don't think this needs to be done. I think it needs to stay commercial. What happens to the small businesses that are there now? Do they get to stay, or do they leave like the rest of them do? I mean, it's up to you to make that decision. I mean, it's people's livelihoods that are on the line. So it's up to y'all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for your comments. Do we have anyone else from the public that would like to come forward and comment? Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any comments that they would like to make on this project?
Okay, whatever kind of development goes in there, if it's largely residential or even commercial, and if you whether you have Newton Road open or not, I would just probably want to see some changes to the traffic signal right there at Newton. You've got fast, heavy traffic going through there. You've got some businesses on the other side of the road that are well used, and probably any residents in this new development, whatever it turns out to be, will find attractive. And well, as was said, it's desirable to have people use the bus. Well, the bus goes from there on that side to Clemson, but all those people do come back, and they're going to have to get across that road. So I think I would like to see an on-demand pedestrian signal there at that point, or someplace along the line. And I do notice there's the left turn lane on their plans was still there, and there's no left-hand turn to get into the new entrance. That would have to be addressed.
I want to say I am a volunteer up here, and I know you get paid to do your presentations and get paid to redo some of the development based on our recommendations. But I feel like we have given you feedback, and I feel like you continue to come forward with the same type of project that you brought to us the very first time. So 120 units, 441 beds. I understand about you added 8 units of affordable housing and 14,000 square feet of commercial space. But I guess what I'm hung up on is a planned development gives the city something, and I just don't. It's not a give and take here. It's basically you come forward asking for something, and then the next time you come, you change not very much, and then it comes back, and it's almost the 8 units of affordable housing is almost insulting. And I know you're working with whatever you have to work with, but I feel like we've given you feedback, and I don't feel like you've used it well. So my issue is Clemson Next doesn't recommend that the site be used in this way, and I just have a hard time supporting this.
I could just to comment on this one. Reading through the Clemson Next for this space, it talks about workforce housing and also affordable housing. So workforce housing recommendation is 60 to 100% of the area median income, and affordable housing would be 30 to 60%. Looking at this, you're stating 80 to 120% would be this workforce housing target, which is well above what the Clemson Next was targeting. In addition, it does state that it's oriented entirely to non-students for this Clemson Crossing character and vision, where yours definitely says, except for the workforce units, the tenants will be mostly college-age students. So I do also agree that this does not fit what the Clemson Next vision for that site states.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, I agreed a lot with Silkworth. It seems very, not creative is the best way to put it. It seems like this, it's a great space, it's a great commercial space, it's got a lot of potential for the city, and it seems like all the numbers for why you're wanting to come and why you keep coming back is to make it work with the student housing. And the commercial is just, if it doesn't lease, it doesn't lease. But your numbers are working with the student housing, is the way it seems to me. It's just another project where the commercial space is definitely on the back burner. That's my.
Greg, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir.
This is Herb.
Herb, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Not only does this not fit Clemson Next, it does not fit the strategic plan. It does not need to be a planned unit development in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion, because it doesn't really fit the total definition of a planned unit development in South Carolina, in my opinion, even though I'm not a legal counsel. What I can tell you is that this creates issues with the setbacks. It creates issues that would affect the other residents. It's one of the last commercial areas that we do have available, and I believe that it based on Clemson Next and Clemson Crossing, this in no way meets that. In the comments of 14,000 square feet of retail, and the comment that that's enough to support the people that are already there. That's not the vision of Clemson Next. It calls for 40 to 60,000 square feet, maybe smaller anchor. While that hasn't been done in this presentation, and they don't see that feasibility, I believe it would be a major mistake to in any way consider, one, a planned development here, and number two, going away from the strategic plan and going away totally from Clemson Next.
Thank you, Herb. John, do you have anything you want to add?
I think it's pretty much been covered.
Okay.
I think everybody's pretty much covered it.
I'm going to agree with Commissioner Crowley. I believe that kind of all of my comments were covered by others and also a few members of the public. So at this time, I'm going to ask, do we have a motion on this action item tonight?
I make a motion that PUD 0000146-203, known as Planned Development Station, receive a negative recommendation, not only to go to City Council as a planned development, but to even be considered.
And I second that motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, if you would, please raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, I believe that motion passed unanimously. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda this evening. and that's going to be PUD-00212-2024, The Grange. I made sure I double checked that one before I read it on this one. We'll give these gentlemen just a moment to exit if they'd like. And just for a point of reference as well, for any of those that were here for that section of the meeting, if you feel the need that you'd like to exit at this time, feel free to do so. All right, we're going to go ahead at this point and move forward. I know there's some shuffling around, so I'll just repeat that while what we're doing. The next action item on the agenda this evening is PUD-00212-2024, The Grange. For staff, do we have any updated reports, changes, any staff report that you all would like to give this evening? No. Okay. All right, at this point, I'll have one of the representatives from the Grange, if y'all would like to come forward with any updates from our previous meeting. And again, with the last agenda item we had, just to remind you that we do have a 10-minute time limit on your presentation.
Okay. My name is Cassidy Machado Michelle. I'm a DPR design out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're leading the planning effort here, and it's good to be back in front of you today. So the planning package that you see today is substantially similar to what we've reviewed the past two times we've been in front of you. I'll do my best to keep it under the 10 minutes here.
We won't start yet until we get.
I can go ahead. Yeah, let's go. So walking into the project, again, we wanted to create a community focused on fostering a sense of community, growing together, engaging with each other in nature. You can go ahead. We want to be the definition of live, work, and play, focus on connectivity with nature and each other, create a true multi-generational community, and become both a destination and a home. Go ahead. Get the next one. So walking us into where we are, we're off of Chapman Hill Road, off of 123, just past Patrick Square. We actually have two separate parcels that we're looking at. You can go to the next one, all right. Phase one, where the red dot is there with the one in it, is the existing Grange subdivision, which has been annexed already into the city of Clemson with the R20 zoning designation. The area where the focus of our future development is going to be is the red-orange area with the two. So we were looking to both annex that parcel and bring it in under the PD zoning district. Here's just an outline of the existing subdivision and the future development areas there. This is just another graphic highlighting kind of the areas that we're going to focus the future development on there. Moving to our proposed master plan here, highlighting the existing subdivision development area 1 on the left of your screen there. And then there's two separate focused areas of development, the town center and what we're calling the Creekside Commercial Village as you move towards 18 Mile Creek. And those are divided by 150-foot Duke right-of-way power easement there. Also highlighted on the screen here in that yellow dashed line is the future alignment of the Green Crescent Trail, which will be connecting to Patrick Square and Nettles Park to the plan west. Moving in just a highlight of the development area 1, this is the existing subdivision, which is getting built out currently. the town center, which is we're proposing a mix of residential and commercial uses here. Really, the main focus is on commercial food and beverage and employment opportunities developed here. The idea is to focus the building orientation to create really pedestrian-friendly, focused, almost a downtown core, moving the vehicular circulation and parking to the outside of the development and bringing the intensity of the pedestrian uses, food and beverage, and public spaces to the inside of the architecture. This is just a highlight of what the proposed build-out may look like from an architectural perspective and the building siting to create and frame those spaces that we were talking about. And then just a highlight of what those public plazas, pedestrian open space, outdoor dining experiences, may look like. Moving down towards the creek, this is the Creekside Commercial Village we're talking about. Ideally, this is a mix of food and beverage, retail, some employment, and potentially a hospitality component. The building orientation is, again, creating and defining the connecting street or Chapman Hill Road extension down towards 18 Mile Creek. So Chapman Hill Road extension would be defined by architecture on the high side and the Creekside Park on the low side. And again, highlighting some of those open spaces and amenities that we're looking at putting in the Creekside Park along 18 Mile Creek there, including the Green Crescent Trail connection and a future trail connection into our community, and a provision of public parking and trailhead access for members of this community, but also the greater Clemson community. So looking at the development tabulations of what we're looking at, we divided this into development area 1 on the left and development area on the two on the right. The total area is 148.36 acres with 29.98 approximately acres of open space provided within this development. On the residential side, a mix of townhomes, mixed use, live, work, condos, apartments, multifamily, and single family would be approved under this PD application. The minimum residential development would be 231 dwelling units, and that includes the current 199 that are planned in development area 1 and getting built out currently, with a maximum of 620 dwelling units. The plan, as currently shown, reflects 244 residential dwelling units proposed here. On the non-residential side, this would be entirely focused in development area 2. A minimum of 65,000 square feet of non-residential uses, a maximum of 400,000 square feet of non-residential uses. As shown on the plan currently, there's 294,250 proposed square feet of non-residential uses. So moving over to development area 1, this slide highlights the future development areas that have been platted as part of the phase 1 development here. So we're looking for an opportunity to potentially develop up to 11 additional single-family and single-family attached houses in the areas highlighted in yellow on the screen. And this is a development plan of development area 2. Again, we're looking to develop a minimum of 32 residential dwelling units, a maximum of 410, and as shown on the plan currently, there's the 34 urban single-family attached townhome products shown on the plan now. Moving to the non-residential, again, we're committing to a 65,000 square feet of commercial at a minimum, a maximum of 400,000 square feet, and as shown on the plan, there's 294,250 square feet. So, in our last meeting, we heard from several members of the Grange community, and as part of that meeting, we had mentioned that we were going to hold a community meeting with them as well. I didn't have a chance to work it into the slideshow, but we did meet with them on March 6th. We had a pretty good turnout. Over 30 people attended that community meeting. I think a lot of the comments that we heard at the meeting last week were reflected in that meeting. So some of the key things that were brought up were the conditions of Chapman Hill Road, the conditions of the bridge going over the creek as you're going to the Grange on Chapman Hill Road, access to play for their children, safety of their kids, They felt like they were potentially misled by either representatives of DRB or misunderstanding of what was being sold, in the sense that the future development areas that we highlighted in yellow up on the screen was going to be permanent open space. Some of the things that we ended the meeting on when discussing a compromise and next steps with the residents were we kind of educated them on what the actual recorded plats said as far as the definition or delineation of common open space versus future development areas. We talked about the trail network and the installation schedule for both natural surface trails, nature trails, and hard surface trails with trailheads, and the potential build-out time of those amenities. We talked about the future amenities coming in Phase 2 or Development Area 2. And we also talked about, in some of the common open spaces that are already delineated on the Phase 1 plan, we talked about introduction of some soft amenities there, so picnic tables, grills, a space for kids to spread out and play in a dedicated area as well. So on our plate is to take this feedback, and we're committed to come up with an amenity plan based on that feedback, and then re-engage with the neighborhood with our proposal there. So that's where we left that. So that's all I got for you today.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming back and speaking with us. Do we have any members of the public that would like to come forward and comment on this proposal this evening? All right. Any commissioners have any comments that they would like to make?
I do. On slide 17, we're, I guess, looking at Development Area 1 and Development Area 2. This plan development calls for a lot of flexibility on the city of Clemson's part. Basically, if approved, you could put 231 units, or you could put 620. And you have the best possible scenario in your pictures, the 244. And then for non-residential, it's the same thing. The minimum non-residential space is 65,000, with the maximum being 400,000. But everything in your pictures show 354,700. So I feel like you're asking for a lot of flexibility on our part to you could put 620 homes there, or you could put 231. And I think we gave you that feedback another time, and I think someone just said, well, based on the market, you don't know what's going to happen with the market. But it just seems like I feel more comfortable approving something that I know what I'm approving, because it could be 65 square feet of non-residential space, or it could be 400,000. And that was your comment every time.
Almost like it.
Yeah, it's,
Real.
Yeah.
well, I mean, to piggyback off that, that was my main concern, is that we don't, we see a picture of what you would like us to look at and consider, but at the same time, when you get down to what you're asking for approval for, it's just such there's not much that we can't, it's not a project we can look at and say, yeah, this is a good fit, or here's my concern about this area or that area, because, I mean, you could have, if you took your additional 400 or 375 units that aren't pictured and made them multifamily with a residency of 4, that's like 1,500 kids or people almost that could live out there. That's a huge difference from what's being presented. And it's hard to, and I understand you've mentioned market flexibility and things change in a project of this size, and that's fine, but that's, I mean, you're talking about the difference between an 8-story mixed-use building and a 2-story commercial building. And it's just not, we can't look at the drawing and say, yeah, we like this, we're gonna approve it, but then also in the back of our mind say, well, if we approve this, this isn't necessarily what we're gonna get. We might get an 8-story building that's got 800 people in it.
Yeah, I understand and I hear you. And so after the first time that we presented, we did go back and dial back our ranges significantly. So the high end of residential, I believe, was 850 previously, and the high end of the commercial was 500 or 600,000. I may be mistaken on that. So we kind of right-sized that.
Hold on, can you come up? So,
Yeah.
yeah, no problem. So the recording, we can make sure everybody hears it.
I apologize.
No problem.
So we did dial those back and kind of right-size them to the actual, size of the development area here. And what we've also added was slide 19, and then also an attachment to our application package, which is will be the rezoning plan. So what I think we were willing to kind of commit to was the development form defined in the plan as we laid out. So the pretty pictures, the buildings defining the open space, the parking oriented to the rears of the buildings, and whether the buildings develop as an office building, a commercial building, a multifamily building with commercial on the first floor, it's going to be creating and defining the spaces that we've all talked about. And I think, you all have shared that, yeah, the pretty picture is good, we like this, but so I think what we were trying to do was find an area of compromise of giving the flexibility of ultimately building out a 400 or 300,000 square foot commercial building is something, it's going to take years to take that down. But what we were trying to find the area of compromise was committing to the building form orientation, the circulation, both vehicular and pedestrian, orientation of the parking, and really the placemaking of this development is where we were trying to find the compromise there. So yes, I understand we're asking for.
Because why would you put commercial space there? Why not put homes that you can make way more money on than commercial space? Like, I'm looking at that, I'm like, that's cool, I'd love to go there, this is amazing, but the fine print is like, that might all be somebody's house. Like, that could be homes and not it's like you're not really giving us anything. I mean, you kind of are, because you're giving us this presentation that looks cool, but when I look at the words, they don't necessarily, this could go really bad for us as far as like a lot of residential space and not the amenities that you're kind of selling us on that we're getting excited about.
Amenities in the sense of non-residential development?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think in any development scenario, you're going to get the parks and the open space and the trails and the plazas. No, but I hear what you're saying, and so I guess we're here asking for that compromise. We're here to commit to the development form, all of the good urban design planning things that we've discussed and all said that we liked, and we're asking for the flexibility on the ultimate build out of what that architecture, who's inhabiting that architecture.
Right, but I think that's one of the issues is we have to, in order for us to consider the impact of this project on the city and whether it's a good fit or not, as far as the annexation and that type of thing, and the general stuff, putting that commercial space there is going to add one amount of traffic, one amount of people or whatever. Adding 1,400 or 1,500 other people out there is a whole different ballgame.
Right.
And so we can't, I guess we could consider all scenarios, but that's like considering 2 to 3 different projects and then trying to decide if we're okay with okaying all of them, or if there's one particular project that you want us to look at and consider. Because like I said, if you're going with people out there, we've got to consider, is mass transit an option? Are you guys going to run private shuttles around? Do we need to do CAT stuff? How much are you guys going to kick in for that? Because that's an impact on the city. What's the city? And here it says the city's responsible for Chapman Hill Road. What's that going to cost us if you put 1,500 people out there? We're going to have to make it 4 lanes. We're going to have to expand that bridge. There's those kind of impacts that we have to consider that I get it. Like, you guys don't know that rent might triple again in the next 2 years and make the residential way better for you. Or commercial may go up. But it's a different impact from our perspective.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
So even if you keep the same footprints of the buildings and stuff for the architecture, it's the impact of everything else that changes.
And it's a huge risk, I feel like, not knowing what is going in those buildings.
Yeah, I have a few simple questions.
Go ahead, Matt.
So you said this is what it may look like. So to make sure I'm clear, the idea is to develop this commercial space and sell lots, correct? Or are you proposing a building and then you're going to lease the building?
So I don't know how the actual, if it's gonna be a spec building and ground lease or what it may be, so.
We're shooting in the dark.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be, anything, if we're just gonna sell lots off.
I'll be honest with you, I think just basically my assumption when I looked at the permitted uses in the table at the end and the wide range of residential use dwelling units versus non-residential square footage, I mean, it's basically unzoned land is what it winds up being. Yes, it'll have a PD designation, but you could basically run the table of the zoning ordinance of what you could put out there. You could take any one of the classifications and throw it in there, and it would be legal if approved as presented.
no, I hear you, John.
Do you have another question?
Just a simple question. Roughly, how many lots are phase one?
I don't know that question.
So there's 199 lots right now in phase one.
Available?
Not available.
Yeah, I'm Daryl McNeil. I work with Youngblood. There's 199 lots in phase one. The purpose of this plan right here, we've met with staff for many months. They gave us guidance that we could have flexibility, and the intent is this is plan A, and we have a prospective commercial tenant in the commercial town center. There's a speculative building that'll go in if we can secure that first tenant that'll go beside it. So that'll be commercial and mixed use live work units. So those are the first two buildings that are going to go in. We also have a customer who's interested in 34 townhomes. So that's everything at the town center. Everything between the town center and the creek on the other side of the power line is a reserve piece of property for us to wait until there's more residential development to come online to justify the use that we're hoping for, which would be the highest and best use, really down the road for the entertainment and the retail and the restaurants down on the waterfront there. So we wanted the flexibility, for example, where we're proposing a hotel at this time, mid-rise, but if the future, which is pretty far out, 5 years and beyond, does not justify that highest and best use for a hotel, we would consider going multifamily there instead of that. But, the plan that we've presented as proposed is what we're really planning for based on the interest that we've secured from, future customers of ours. And we're in the spirit of what the city had asked us to do with the staff to give us flexibility in that regard, the min and the max.
Commissioner Tyler, do you have a comment?
Craig? Yes. I have several comments. Number one, some of my biggest concerns are not just on the pictures that we see, but in the language in the PD ordinance. I've never seen anything written like this. For example, section 101, there are issues that it says it may claim this, but not limited to. And but not limited to doesn't definitively give a plan that is going to be carried out. That means it can change at any time. In a mixed-use development, which I understand with commercial, maybe light industrial, maybe different types of things that are put in there, a hotel, things like that, I understand it. But the problem is the but limited to in that area. The same thing throughout this document. And there are things that say the developer and the city can approve additional access points not specifically outlined above. The developer reserves it provided to provide limited access to privately controlled portions of the project, including but not limited to. Again, throughout this, that, for me, is a problem. I think when things are coordinated throughout the city with our staff, with the people here, it being in the city of Clemson is huge. I think when you keep going down and you take a look, the project subject to any covenants, including amendments to the above HOA, recorded with the city of Clemson, then recorded with the town of Central and the county of Pickens. I mean, the town of Central has nothing to do with the city of Clemson, unfortunately. And that was my question. Are there any covenants in the town of Central? As you go throughout this document, and I can keep going, this is red line. The developer's not aware of anything, any future covenants, conditions, restrictions that may be placed on the project will follow the guidelines set forth in and be governed by the ordinance. I get it. Areas deeded to the city or other authorities owned and maintained by such authority. You know, a lot of this also needs to include that the city does have additional approval procedures, whether it be through with Jacob, with Art, with Nathan. It needs to do that. So it's hard for me when I read this. I've never seen a planned development written in this type of way. So I could keep going through the red line. You know, there's a difference between things in here that are being asked for that should be in utility agreements. They should be in a development agreement, not necessarily in something like this that would commit the city or may supersede some other things that we don't have the authority to take a look at. And so I know that we mentioned some of the sections, and those were approved and moved out, but personally, I think that this needs to be re-looked at all through. There's certain things, like for instance, and this concerns me because I do hear it. First of all, Cassidy, please let you know, thank you so much for keeping your word and following up with those concerned citizens. Even though that is not a city issue or planning, we're here. But there's now a clause in here, developer reserves the right to provide amenity and support uses serving a neighborhood or residential complex. Right to or not to. Future private amenity areas, parks, linear parks. I understand the need for flexibility. However, there's a need in the city of Clemson to have some type of definitiveness in what we're doing, even if you have to come back and ask for it to be redone and looked at again. One of the issues that, and I don't know, I'm late to the game, but, you know, the part about industrial utilization in there, that is just too widespread and not defined. And so you're wanting a canopy exemption. One of the biggest things that I do know is that the city of Clemson turned around and created an Office of Land Management and Development. One thing that they're currently doing with Tony Tidwell is mapping the canopies throughout the city. And I have no idea whether that has been taken into account or talked with, or if that's even a reasonable thing to do. You know, they're different things that need to be sure that match with the rest of the city. And so for me, the planned development needs to be totally looked at different if it is a plan. plan development that happens, and it needs to be rewritten. It looks like on some of these charts, when I looked at it, that with the land management review, what's the standard currently in the city? If this is being asked to be annexed in the city, it shouldn't be any different than the city guidelines right now. And this is, to me, very concerning in what we're doing here without having that. So in taking a look at it, do understand that you're asking for flexibility, but I believe it's actually too much flexibility that's being asked for, and that there needs to be more discussion. And so that's actually my take on it. I agree with all the other comments. Commissioner Crowley, I 100% agree with what you're saying. Cassidy and guys, I do appreciate the fact that you do have potential tenants out there, and I think that's great. But the unknown and a blanket flexibility without having to come back and to still take a review at those things is too much, in my personal opinion. So what I would ask the commissioners, if I could make a motion to postpone our vote on this till the next meeting in April and allow the Grange to come back through, to take a look at some of these issues, to look at the ordinance that they're asking for. So the motion would be that PUD-000-212-2024 proposed plan development at the Grange be postponed until March. I'm sorry, until April meeting.
I second that. Is there any other discussion or anyone that didn't have a comment that they wanted to make before we have a formal vote on the motion?
Are we allowed to respond to what Mr. Hurd Tyler just said? Is that possible, or will we have an opportunity to?
With the motion on the floor, I don't know if we can. I think we need to vote on it first before, but okay. Then I'll give you an opportunity where you can respond to that as well. Did you have one comment that you wanted to make before?
I just have a question for information, so go ahead.
Okay, all right. So all in favor of the motion that's on the floor right now, please raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion is unanimous that we will postpone our vote for PUD-000-212-2024, the Grange, until our regular scheduled meeting in April. Go ahead.
Okay.
Commissioner Burton, with your comment or question that you have.
Yes, the proposed connector to 88, who is responsible for building that and when?
Okay, so I'll answer that question first, and then I'd like to respond to Mr. Tyler.
Yes, sir,
okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
So regarding the bridge, we took the bridge out because the staff had recommended in early January that they couldn't recommend annexation for everything on the other side of the creek, which is 563 acres plus some out parcels. Initially, there was conversations about annexing the whole 767 acres. And so when the city made that recommendation for us, to us, that they couldn't recommend it to the city council that we annex the entire property, we really put the bridge and the connection to Highway 88 on hold, because the initial plan was to go accelerated on that and maybe have it completed by 2026. But there's so many public financing pieces to this project with all the infrastructure that it's wise for us to wait until there's more certainty with that public financing regarding the infrastructure, which includes the road and the bridge.
Go ahead, respond, Mr. Tyler, if you wish.
Okay, Mr. Tyler, thank you for the thorough comments. I just wanted to respond to a few of them. I just wanted to assure you that there really is a tremendous history related to all the areas of the ordinance that you pointed out. I mean, there's been discussions with the staff. There's items that we want to make sure that we can, make sure are honored and protected for us with what we've discussed with the staff going forward, because it's a long-term project. And we could go into the specifics of that at some other time. Regarding the references to the city of Central, et cetera, that was related to the annexation agreement for Phase 1. The city of Central owns and maintains the sewer in Development Area 1, which is Phase 1 for the 199 lots. And so the reference to Central was pertaining that sewer agreement that is a part of the annexation agreement that we have with Clemson for Phase 1. And, anything with Pickens County is related to the plans that were all approved for Phase 1 additionally as well, because the city agreed to honor the approved plans that the county had approved. So that's why there's so much language in there related to that history once again. And the utilities, Mr. Tyler. So the other thing regarding the recreation, we wanted to be protected related to the recreation that we're discussing with the existing homeowners. There's some language in y'all's ordinance that if a recreation area is added after the fact, that it has to be a minimum of 5 acres. We're trying to squeeze in some passive recreation areas in 1, maybe 2 areas for the existing residents, and both those areas would be less than 5 acres. So we just didn't want to have an issue with the city once we came forward with that plan. The canopy exemption, we would not ask for a canopy exemption. The only thing that we asked for was an exemption on the tree survey. We're going to protect a lot of the buffers and the large specimen trees, but the entire property was clear cut by Pickens County before we bought it, and there's brush that's overgrown now. We just don't want to get into an obligation where we got to survey a bunch of scrub brush that's going to be cleared. And so it's not a canopy exemption by all means. I just wanted to clarify that too.
All right.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And hopefully as you take my comments, one of the things by not being able to read that through this document, that was my comments related to this. All of that type of thing needs to be spelled out to where everybody understands in a PUD, because a PUD lasts forever. It lasts forever. And so it's very hard to read. It's very hard to understand. And, even the part about the possibility of commercial and the but not limited to. I understand needing the flexibility. I understand that. But there has to be some type of way of getting flexibility, even if it means coming back in certain ways. And that's why I put that a lot of these things might be able to be addressed. That's why I made the motion to delay that, and that maybe a lot of that can be cleared up for everybody without making a hasty decision.
Understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys so much, and I think too, it may, and just for a point of information, Nathan, I mean, would it be something that a workshop would be ideal for, just in your opinion, with this type of situation, so we can have more of a dialogue and that sort of thing?
Yeah, if that's the wishes of the commission, that's something you could absolutely call for.
Okay.
Can I ask a question or not?
I guess it would have to be more, not necessarily
Be for
towards.
Nathan, maybe.
Yeah, point of information, yeah.
Is the city responsible for Chapman Hill Road?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So I can't ask them for clarification on something?
I guess we can.
Yeah, do you guys mind just a quick clarification, because it's been confusing me every time I read this. I'm used to, I guess, some of the zoning language and stuff, but where you guys have dwelling units and then you have non-residential uses, but under your non-residential uses you have mixed-use building, live, work, dwelling units listed as non-residential under that 400,000 square footage. I didn't know if you guys could clarify how that stuff's being counted. If like a live work unit, it is a non-residential use as you've got it listed, is that coming off the commercial square footage and the dwelling unit proposal, or just the dwelling unit, or just the commercial square footage, and how is that counted?
We had a discussion with staff to clarify that because there's a nuance there. The as proposed, the as shown, it does not include the residential units, okay, in the number of residential units. It's all considered commercial space, the live work units. So we tried to clarify with the staff how that may have been, you know, quantified in other areas of the city where there's live work units. And for simplistic purposes, I think we elected at the time to just allocate commercial densities to all of that. So, you know, whether it's apartments, multifamily, or the live work units, it's all commercial space.
So just to, this is just for my calculation, because the numbers that I ran for potential population out there was based off my understanding, which is apparently different. What you're saying is you could have up to an additional, I think it was 375 dwelling units, which would be the residential. And if those were the attached apartment dwelling units, they could be an occupancy of 4, plus 400,000 square feet of live work, mixed-use buildings, things like that would add more residents on top, more population of people full-time out there on top of that.
Are you referencing calculations from the prior applications or the current application?
The current application, okay. The one I got said you've got 34 on the drawing.
That's right.
Dwelling units.
That's right.
Maximum of 410.
Right, so the maximum that's shown there would be, for example, if we remove the hotel, it's a mid-rise hotel, so we would make it multifamily.
Right.
So if for some reason nothing comes forward because of the condition of Chapman Hill Road, I mean, if people don't want to come and have an office there, okay, and we can't get them to buy this property or to build a building, we don't think that that's the case, but it could be the case because it's a dead-end road. We don't know what's going on with this bridge. So in that case, worst case scenario, we could put 200 apartments instead of the commercial space. So that's where you're getting the additional maximum.
I'm just trying to, I understand that. Okay. What I'm trying to figure out is the end-all, be-all, total maximum number of people that could wind up there. You've got the additional 375 dwelling units. And then you've got 400,000 square feet of non-residential space. If you make that apartments, multifamily or whatever, is the 410 still the max number, or can you divvy up that 400,000 into 400,000 square foot live work units and add more people?
No, I think the maximum is the maximum. So, but to answer your question, the 34 dwelling units on the townhouses, that does not include, in terms of residential, there might be like 80 additional tenants in a residential unit in the commercial space, which is a live work unit. And that 80 would be included in the maximum of 400. Okay.
So the live work units are counted towards the maximum of 400.
In the maximum, yes.
Okay,
but not in the proposed as shown.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, because the way you have it written is you have the residential square footage and then the residential units. So, okay, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, we didn't want to double count. So.
Right, well, that's what I was just trying to make sure that, like, okay, if I say, if you go extremely one way, all residential, the most you could wind up with 4 occupancies of all those units is 1,600. And there's no way more than 1,600 people can go out there.
No way more than
410, so no more than 1,640 or something like that.
Well, we might only have, less than 2 residents per some of those units without.
Right, I'm just, for a maximum, the way it's written, if it was all multifamily with occupancy of 4 for each unit, and each unit was maxed out, that would be a maximum of 1,640, I believe. I'm not saying that's what's going to be. I'm just asking if that is the end-all, be-all, top number possible that could actually be squeezed out there.
Well, I think we already got a motion, and then we voted on it, so we're gonna work on it.
We'll get more clarity on that.
We'll get the clarity, but thank you guys so much for being here, and I feel confident we can all work together and make this thing a great project for our city.
Can I get a clarification? Sorry, I'm Daniel Youngboy.
Yeah.
So, you guys would have been taking a vote to approve or to recommend approval or denial tonight, is that correct?
There was an action item on the agenda, yes.
Okay, so, just in case tonight would have been a recommendation for denial had it not been,
No, there was never a motion to even have a vote on it this evening. So we made a motion to postpone the vote until our next regular scheduled meeting.
okay. How long would this push out the total timeline? I'm saying that, I'm not sure that we want to extend, I guess. I'm not saying that for certain, I'm just for our knowledge.
Well, I mean, like I said, it'll be an action item at our next meeting in April.
Be April?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, well, we'll move on down our agenda for the evening to advisory items. Do we have any advisory items? Any discussion items?
I don't have any discussion now.
Do we need to discuss whether we're gonna have a workshop or?
There's a future workshops on board.
Yeah.
That would be that?
Staff reports.
I've got, just as a reminder, the steering committee thing for the comp plans tomorrow, and I looked at the time on the invitation to make sure the steering committee is 5:30 to 6:30, and then there's another session, the public visioning session is from like 7 to 9, I believe is how they had it.
Yeah,
It'd be 8, it's about an hour, yes, or less.
Do we stay for the public session?
I think that's up to you. What I would encourage you is, you guys know there's a lot of negativity out now, and comp plan is very important. It's super important staff, and so invite your friends, invite your neighborhood. We've social media blasted pretty heavily on this, and we hope it's really important that we have a good turnout. So knock on your neighbors' doors.
I guess since it is a called city-run meeting, if all of us were to stay for the public session, is there any issue with us as far as having a quorum there?
I don't think so. In that sense.
Since it's a publicly.
It's been advertised
Advertised, and you wouldn't be there.
But you're not going to be meeting and discussing anything amongst.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to confirm
But
that.
I think that, the comp plan is a document that guides the city, and it guides you guys. So you'll be there for for the steering session, which is important, but the rest of it's important too for the public to see what you guys do and what we do. So that's good.
Okay. Any other staff reports? All right, representation at city council meeting?
I don't have anything at city council coming up.
Yeah, there's nothing coming up.
Okay.
yet.
Future workshops, other events that, I know you just mentioned the event tomorrow night.
That, yes, and as far as setting a workshop, if the commission wants to set a workshop on the Grange, I can send out a poll and just see what your schedules are, what your availability is. We'll look, see what else is going on, we can get some space. That's all, with us, it's space is at a premium here at City Hall.
Yeah.
So,
I just, speaking for me personally, I'd like to see it to where we get to a point at the next meeting.
Where you can vote, yes, I understand that.
Forward.
Absolutely.
So whatever clarity we can get.
Yeah, and staff will touch base with the developer as well to, for clarity's sake and if they could attend a workshop, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners for the evening? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Herb.
Everyone else has left the call.
He said he was on a cruise, but I looked up the ship.
Maybe it's a day cruise?
This thing's got like 30 sails.
So we live on this, the Queen of Tiger One.
Oh, did you? Where at?
Pretty wild.
So,
It's across from Patrick Square.
hold on, wait. Still on the record. He was giving us